document could be suspect, which is why he marks it as red. He has no trust in it. Okay. So, what does B do? B prefixes this text string with another text string, okay, which is the A's contract, creates a longer text string. Even now there is no trust because it is still flagged as red, nothing has been verified as yet. Okay. Let us move forward. First thing is, now somebody has to verify this cryptographically. Okay. The first thing is, has B tampered with the contract? So, the C's verification program, it checks whether the hash is correct or not. It picks up the HC1, checks it and sees that the contract is a valid contract. So, nothing has been tampered. Okay. So, the red contract for A to B becomes green. So, it is verified. Okay. Hashes matches, we know that house was sold to B. Now, which B? Is it the same B who is now selling it, or is it some other B to whom this house has gone? Okay. So, that has to be checked. So, what it does is, it checks the signature of B from the public key and creates a vision of the public key as prepared in the first contract. If that public key and the new public key which B has provided matches, we know that the original contract went to the B's public key and the B's public key is now passing it on to C. Okay. So, now we know that the entire contract has been validated and it has been done purely by running a piece of algorithm, and all it says is that a public key from A has transferred this asset to a public key called B, and public key called B is now transferring the asset to a public key called C. That is all. We do not know who is A, B and C, but the entire transaction is now valid at the public key level. So, now we accept that we have got a valid contract. This is how Bitcoin transactions are validated. Actually, it is not quite as simple as this, little bit more complicated, but let us get the first picture, that by comparing public keys and signatures, we can ensure that the asset flow has been done correctly or not. Okay, good. So, what happens? Now, when C is now transferring to D the same asset, he will go through the same process, and this process will continue as assets keep moving from A to B to C to D to E to F and so on and so forth. And this entire contracts are based on cryptographic principles, no knowledge of the person is required, no signature verification, no notarization, no PAN card, no nothing. Okay. So, this is entirely mathematical. Of course, you will say, what is that H25? Can I do a house that? No, we can only transfer digital assets like this, and digital assets are the source of our digital currency or cryptocurrency. Okay. Now, let us see how it moves. The big problem with anything which is not physical is the concept of double spend. Okay. Now, while I can give you a coin, a gold coin, I cannot give a same gold coin to somebody else. If I give it to you, the coin goes out of my hand. But if I have a note, a currency note, I can photocopy it, and I can give you one and I can give the photocopy to the other. Why will it fail? Because you evidently will see a photocopy and you can't, you know it is not a genuine. Okay. The trouble is, physical assets cannot be duplicated, but digital assets can be. I can give you a copy of a file, MP3 file, I can make another copy of it and give it to you, okay, and both will be identical and you will never know whether I have given it to both of you. So, the question of a double spend is the biggest issue, okay, in anything which is when you are transferring digital assets, okay, which is why we have piracy at a such high level. Anybody can make a copy and give it out. How does cryptocurrency avoid this? Obviously, such a thing cannot be tolerated. Okay? I mean, real currency you cannot duplicate and make photocopies and give it out, it will not work. How is this addressed? Okay. Which brings us to the concept of the the shared ledger, which is the another very important innovation from Nakamoto. Okay. Now, establishing ownership and transfer of an asset is clearly the big challenge. It is almost like saying, if you write a dud check, I have 1,000 rupees in the bank, I give you a check for 1,000 rupees, I also give you a check of 1,000 rupees. Okay. Evidently, it has to be caught on somewhere. Okay. I mean, it can't happen. I mean, one of the checks will bounce. Where will it bounce? It will bounce at the bank, because the bank has a ledger. Okay. It has a ledger where everybody's balance is stored, and we all know how it works. So, if I have written a check to you and your ledger is debited, then I write a check to you. When a second debit happens, it will instantly, the bank will spot it and reject the transaction. Okay. So, we have this a central ledger, and this central ledger is again fundamental to our currency mechanism. Okay. Banks have it. Same with shares, share transfer. Where do you think is the central ledger? NSDL. NSDL central ledger. So, I cannot sell you 10 Tata Steel shares and again sell you another same 10 to somebody else. The NSDL will do the same thing. So, the assets are tracked in a central ledger. Now, where is the central ledger for a cryptocurrency? There is none. What we have instead is a distributed and shared ledger. Everybody in principle, and I will make more clarification later on. To begin with, let us assume that all of us have a copy of everybody's bank balance. Okay. So, when I transfer some money to you, everybody updates the ledger saying that A has transferred to B. So, A suffers a debit, B suffers a credit. You might think this is impossible, but nothing is impossible in today's world with technology. Okay. So, it is as if all of us, every one of us is carrying a copy of the ledger which has the bank balances of everybody who is participating in this network. This is the first philosophy of the crypto economy. Okay. Now, let us see how this is implemented. Of course, it is by replication of databases and stuff like that. So, databases get replicated and stuff like that. It is a little bit more complicated than that. Okay. Nothing is very simple. Okay. So, in reality, we do not store balances of individuals. Do not panic, I will go through this slide very slowly. Okay. Okay. I will take some time on this. Okay. We do not store the balances, we store what is known as unspent transaction outputs. It is called UTXOs. Okay. So, what is it? It in banking terms it means a list of all credits into your account. It does not store the balance, it stores every credit that has been made to your account. Okay. So, these are called UTXOs and they are unspent because nothing has been spent out of there. Okay. So, now what happens is, so there is a huge this list of UTXOs, okay, which is a part of our database. Now, when I transfer some amount to you, I pick up one UTXO, one credit transaction to me and cancel it. So, this is cancelled. So, suppose in this case when A transfers 600 to B, what happens is A had a input credit for 800, that is removed from the database and is replaced with two new UTXOs, one which shows a credit to B of 600 and it shows a balance 200 back to himself. So, it is the change coming back to me. So, I take a UTX of 800, throw it into the pool, you get 600, 200 comes back to me. So, that generates two new UTXOs and the one on the top, the one in black, that has got eliminated and two new have been added at the bottom, if you notice very carefully. So, the UTXO pool is becoming larger. Some of them are now marked as being spent. The green ones are the unspent ones, the white ones have been spent and we have added two more. Same thing happens when D transfers to E. Same, one of the UTXOs are marked as spent and another one becomes unspent. Now, if C transfers another to D, we will notice that there are two suspicious UTXOs that he is using, that 500 and 600 are suspicious. One is suspicious because it was pointing not to C but to B. So, what it is trying to do? It is trying to get a credit which went into your account and showing it as a credit which came to my account. Okay? That is error. Other one is picking up an absolutely fictitious thing called KPUCC, the red one, the second red one, and trying to pass it off as a credit to me. That has also failed. So, this is how it fails. So, the transaction will fail. Okay? Where will it fail? I have written the transaction, I quit the transaction and push it out into the community. The community reads it and says wrong. We will not accept this transaction and we will not put it in our ledger. You may put it in your ledger, but nobody else will duplicate that, because while duplicating it, they will check whether the transaction was a valid transaction or not. Now, since nobody else accepts this transaction, which means money does not come to me. Only in my ledger I have written I have got money, but none of you will accept that I have got the money. So, the entire, and this is the basis on which the whole thing runs. Now, the challenge is this validation is a long process. I mean, there are millions of the, I have shown only 5 or 6 of them. There will be millions and millions of these credits, and doing all this is, not easy. So, क्या किया जाए?